This guy's uncomfortable. I don't know why I'm talking about this.
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And it's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another fun-filled episode of Do I Like Baby Oil or Do I Like Baby Oil? No, it's Criminal Lawyer Reacts. Sorry, I just got sidetracked there. No, we're reacting to a little bit of a juror misconduct kind of issue with Diddy. But before we get to that, this is brought to you by Grandma. Yes, askalawyer.com. Askalawyer.com is a very effective way to get legal advice. For $49, you log onto their website and you talk to a living, breathing human being, lawyer, and they can give you legal advice on any kind of problem that you might be having. Like, let's say your grandma living in your grandson's basement and he's not treating you properly, or you don't think he is. Well, you can call the lawyer and get, for $49, get advice on how to get your grandson to treat you better. Or maybe if you've got a issue with a vehicle you sold, or maybe you've got an issue with somebody you want to sue on a contract, or whatever you need, go to askalawyer.com. These are quality folks because guess what? They're the same folks that brought you eForm and eSign, and they're long-standing sponsors of CLR. So please go to askalawyer.com. And if you're doing your own legal research, they have AI trained on all the 50 states. So askalawyer.com. I'm their official spokesperson, which is true, actually. Okay, so there's this dude. It's Inner City Press. He has kind of a good handle on things. So we're going to watch this video real quick. I'll react to some of the things he's saying. And then we're going to do a deep dive on what this all means.
Matthew Russell Lee, Inner City Press, here at the Southern District of New York Courthouse. Today, Thursday, July 10th, 2025. Now, believe it or not, there is yet more news on the U.S. versus Sean Combs front.
Why is he walking? Why doesn't he have a little office or something?
Yesterday, Judge Subramanian docketed an order to both sides to provide him with, not argument, but a list of cases in which defendants have been convicted under the Mann Act without prior convictions, basically wanting to know what the precedents are.
So there's a section called 3553A, 18 U.S.C. 3553A, and it lays out a list of factors that the judge should take into consideration when determining a sentence. And one of those is disparity in sentencing. The Mann Act is not really considered a really high-level conviction, right? Everybody's a possible 10-year conviction or 10-year prison sentence. Bullshit, he ain't going to get 10 years. But if you look at where he's at, it's you know, it could be anywhere from in the 50s, and we looked at it, and depending upon how the judge fashions the guideline calculation with all the factors set in, it could be a significant sentence, but it's not going to be 10 years, and it's not going to be consecutive, I don't think. So the judge wants to say, how have we treated these in the past?
The government is going to be arguing that relevant conduct should come in, and the defense is going to be saying no. Relevant
conduct is all the other shit that he was acquitted of. You know, the torturing of Cassie, and Cassie's part of this because who were the prostitutes for? They were for her, so he could watch her. Who wants to watch another man fuck his wife, honestly, or girlfriend? Not me. I just think you got to fucking screw loose when you do that, especially if you have 1,000 bottles of baby oil.
And citing a Supreme Court recent decision about acquitted conduct not coming in. Now the question is some of this conduct not actually acquitted, but simply out there and in the ether? We'll find out as it moves along. Now, ironically, yesterday we went to cover a civil case not against Sean Combs, of which there are many of which are being pushed back, but we'll have more on that anon. But against L.A. Reid. Yes, L.A. Reid. Drew Dixon sued him in 2023 here in the SDNY. And he's changed lawyers a couple of times. And yesterday, his new defense or current defense lawyer, who's trying to get released from the case, came to court in front of Judge Vargas, who also has the Drake versus UMG case. So she kind of has something kind of a music portfolio of cases. And L.A. Reid's lawyer said he's not paying. In fact, he changed his phone number and they were unable to speak to their client, L.A. Reid.
That's fucking frustrating. When you take on a criminal case, you get your dough up front. Why do you get your dough up front? Because guess what? If you don't pay your lawyer, he can't withdraw from your case. That's a bad business deal on his decision. The juror notes from 25 won't follow instructions to no verdict on RICO to we have the verdicts. But if you remember, the first day, within like minutes, the court came back, or the jury came back with a question and asked the judge, and told the judge one of the jurors isn't following instructions. Then they go on to deliberate for some time, and they had a couple different questions. But one of the questions was, we can't come to a verdict on RICO. So the judge said, well, think about it overnight, come back and deliberate in the morning. Well, right away in the morning, then they had a verdict. So what's the issue? The issue is whether or not there is a juror that was not following the instructions. So let's take a look at the Diddy verdict post, or the Diddy docket post. So alternate juror number 6, UN employee George, who lied about not knowing he was an alternate, also says that the jury didn't follow instructions. Is he lying about the jury not following instructions, or could this be a contributing factor to the verdicts? You know, here's the thing. They don't know that the jurors don't know that they're the alternate. Okay, they don't know until the judge says, okay, now they're going to go back and deliberate. Juror number 25, you are the alternate. You will not be going back, but stay where you are because I want to talk to you after this. That's what they say every time. And how is the alternate selected? It is the last juror picked. So when you do jury selection, the last juror to be questioned and then selected as a juror is the one who is the alternate, or last however many. You know, once they get to 12, they have 2 alternates. The last 2 are picked are the alternate. Now here's the verdict form: racketeering conspiracy, not guilty. I mean, that's a good verdict for him. Count 2, sex trafficking of Cassandra Ventura, not guilty. So they must have bought the consent argument. And the Mann Act, transportation, Cassandra Ventura, guilty. Sex trafficking of Jane, not guilty. And then you have the other Mann Act related to Jane, and that was guilty. So the big question, and somebody had already written this, but so the big question is, if the alternate jurors were talking to the jurors who are sitting, well, they're all going to talk. You know, it's whether they start a deliberation or start forming an opinion before they get the case. That's really the issue, and so it's whether or not it would trigger a Rule 33 motion. Well, they're gonna file a Rule 33 motion anyway, because they're gonna want to see if they can get rid of those 2 counts. In fact, I'd be shocked if they didn't already file that. So a Rule 33 motion is a motion for a new trial, and they got to file that within 14 days of the verdict. So that's going to get filed. Here's the long and short of it. You know, and they're going to have to question these jurors individually. If they didn't follow the judge's instructions, first of all, you can't go back and do anything about the acquittals. That's hard and fast. It's not appealable by the government. It's not appealable by the judge. The judge can't overturn an acquittal. That is sacrosanct. It is done over. He can't be tried again for those counts, no matter what. No matter what. But the judge could overturn the two verdicts of guilty. That would be reviewable. So after a verdict comes back, if the judge overturns a verdict, notwithstanding the jury's verdict, then that can be appealed by the government. They're going to make a motion for a new trial. They're going to make as much stink as they possibly can about the jurors who were not following the instructions. I mean, they have a note saying juror 25 was not following the instructions. So what does that mean? I don't know what it means, honestly. It's to what degree, you know, somebody's not following. If all of a sudden, you know, you just took a shit while everybody was deliberating, you know, and you just weren't there for that part of the deliberation, well, that's not really significant, right? But if while the case is going on, you're forming opinions and trying to make other people form their opinions, and you aren't doing what the judge said you're supposed to do, you're supposed to keep an open mind, and, you know, you're trying to sway the jury your way because of whatever reason, well, that would be juror misconduct, and that would be grounds for a new trial. You think they would try this again? I doubt it. So to put a little more teeth into what we're talking about, Let's take a look at the clip of the interview with the juror.
You saw some very graphic images, videos. You heard very sexual and graphic details. What was that like, hearing that? And how did it impact how you viewed the case?
No, they were very graphic, and but I think overall, you know, we were looking at it from like one side, and it was definitely riveting and eye-opening.
What did you see on the videos? You know, the press wasn't able to see it in real time.
Yeah. No, I mean, they were showing some of the. Well, I mean, it was both the freak-offs and hotel nights, as they were called, from both of them. But it was...
Were they showing those videos?
They showed... Well, again, you know, the defense and the prosecution showed different clips, so they were very selective. Like the prosecution was showing more, you know, just Cassie just sitting around.
The defense showed that?
The defense showed that, yeah.
Just her sitting around not engaging in sexual activity?
Yes.
The prosecution, when you had to have your headphones on and otherwise, what were you seeing then?
There was sexual activity, but I mean, it wasn't really.
Was it forced? Did it?
No, it didn't. It didn't seem forced. It was actually like pretty tame.
Really?
Yeah.
Did she?
It was just a lot of rubbing oil and stuff on there.
This guy's uncomfortable. I don't know how I'm talking about this. You know, when it comes to sex, you know, we have a lot of sexual images. You know, sex sells beer, sex sells cars, sex sells tanning lotion, sex sells everything. And we got porn all over the place. But guess what? When it comes time to talk about sex, we're pretty damn fucking uncomfortable about it. You know, I mean, the other thing that he said during that interview was that he took it in stride. You know, basically, he didn't say that, but I mean, he essentially did, and he says it was pretty tame. And it didn't have the impact that one would think. You know, we were led to believe, you know, we didn't see any of the tapes, you know, or the recordings. So, but we were led to believe that these are beatings, that there's all kinds of shit going on, you know, that non-consensual people are screaming. And from what he's describing, and you put those along with the text messages that Cassie was sending, you know, that I can't wait for the freak off, I can't wait for this or that. You know, I mean, whatever, you know. So that's, and there's more to that than what's just right here. But the defense is now going to try and see if they can poke holes in this verdict. They're going to do that by two ways. One, saying that there wasn't enough evidence to convict him. And number two, that the jury was tainted. And if the jury is tainted, we have to have a new trial. And so that's when the motion for a new trial. But they have to do that within 14 days of the verdict. So that'll come up pretty soon. So we'll see. And then they've asked for an expedited sentencing hearing. So that'll be coming up. I think they have a date in October, but they're asking for an expedited sentencing hearing. And the judge wants an array of cases showing how these cases have been sentenced in the past. In other words, with this 3553A factors, I don't want a disparity in sentencing, you know, just because he's Sean Diddy Combs. But I am going to take into account relevant conduct, the violent conduct, the pervasive nature of all this shit. I mean, this isn't your average Mann Act case. Your average Mann Act case is where you get a prostitute that comes in over state lines, and it's, you know, usually consenting adults, but it's still illegal. And a one-time offender is not going to go to prison over something like that. However, this has got a lot more yuck factor to it, wouldn't you think? And so the next step for Diddy is file a new motion for a new trial, interview these jurors, get your Rule 33 motion done. They also have to get a motion or a memo to the judge on sentencing disparity, how these cases have been sentenced in the past. And then they have to meet with probation, do a pre-sentence report. They have to file a sentencing memorandum. This is what we think should happen if you don't give him a new trial. We think he should be released immediately, and this is why. The government will say he should get 56 to 87 months or whatever, 56 to 78 months, whatever they think is the appropriate sentence. We'll keep following this. Make sure you subscribe. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter. Sign up for Patreon. I got all these things for you to do. How do you have any time to do anything else? Honestly, make sure you have your wine at the ready. Make sure you have your popcorn at the ready for the next episode. And go to CLRBruceRivers.com for all your merch needs. Get some hoodies and hats and all the goodies. And we'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer React.
Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. 23-hour lockdown, please, is that my God?